from Graz all the way, talking to the half of the Independo funding team, which I'm super excited to do, especially after just hearing your pitch. But we'll not go into there. I really want to, take you on a journey of how did it all begin? What was the insight that led you to actually start doing what you're doing? Can you tell me the backstory?
So it actually all started with a talk with Integration Wien. Integration Wien is an association for people with cognitive disabilities, and they support them in their daily life, for example, planning their future of work and things like that. And I was talking to them, and we were discussing like barriers they kind of face in their everyday life. And one of these barriers was when they try to enter the world of work, they can't access any digital tools because their clients just can't read text-based information. And so they were struggling with Outlook, with Gmail, but also with those calendars integrated in those solutions. And so we thought, okay, we are all developers from the technical university. Why can't we just build a calendar solution based on symbols instead of text? And so everything started.
Okay. So you were all studying together, and that's kind of like where it all began. What was the reason you were talking to this organization in the first place?
Yeah, since I was a little girl, I myself was participating in inclusive summer camps for kids with and without disabilities. And so I was always kind of connected with those institutions. And then I did my first summer school for little girls in Vienna. And we built like assistive technologies in the summer camps, and we were cooperating with Integration Wien.
Okay. So it kind of like, coming from a completely different environment and country, that also tells me that Austria is doing a lot for integrating like kids from the early ages. Yeah,
could be more.
There's always could be more, but it depends on what you're comparing to. Like I've never heard about that in Lithuania, for example. Yeah. So it's already, kind of like a groundbreaking thing that somebody else is doing that in the first place. So you had that insight of like, okay, so there is something that can be done, and you go back to your at that point, not the co-founders, but probably like the study friends. What happens next?
I told them about the solution, and then they went to a bar. You can continue.
Yeah, so we like after studies one day we were like sitting in a bar, and like she told us about the idea, and then we just started prototyping a little bit, just putting things together, and then we went to a school in Vienna where we try to learn more about what are the actual pictograms that they're using, how do they communicate in their current environment without digital tools, and then from that point on we always had people who we were able to talk to, always like Integration Wien, for example, or those schools, and then it became more. They like it started in Vienna, and then it was all of a sudden Kintelfeld as well, and then always like in Upper Austria as well, and it kind of grew from there. And it wasn't like we didn't plan to make a company out of this. In the beginning, it was more like a tinkering thingy where we tried things out, and it was just fun. And then at some point, people actually liked what we were doing, and they were actually using it. And then in August of 2023, we decided to actually make a company out of that. We got a grant from the Austrian state. So we knew we had some money to start a company with, and then we just started working, the four of us, and then we grew over time.
How big is the problem? How many children are there in Austria, or I guess now adults as well? That is your potentially target audience.
So in the DACH region, so Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, it's 819,000 people in institutions that could benefit from our solution. And in general, it's like 240 million people worldwide that struggle with reading or writing text.
Yeah, that is huge, right? And are there a lot of solutions that are trying to solve? Because like there are so many different aspects of how and which areas of cognition of text you could be solving, and you chose calendar. Can you tell me a bit more about like specifically choosing calendar over anything else, and the competitors in your space?
Yeah, so the calendar, we started with the calendar because it was the very concrete problem that Integration Wien had, and that's why we started with that. But the idea is actually much bigger. So we want to take this translation that we have from text-based to pictograms to audio, and integrate it into journaling applications. Help you share what did you do in the past, share pictures, because it helps our users communicating and sharing their memories with their parents, for example. And in the long run, what we want to build is actually a translation mechanism that's similar to how you would translate from German to English, for example, and have that integrated in applications like a messenger or email. So one person could write pictures in pictograms, one person might speak to the application, another person might write to the application, but they would translate all that. People can communicate through that.
So it's almost inventing a new language.
Yeah, we're building on what is there already. So the pictograms that we use, they're the de facto standard in the German-speaking region. So every region has their own set of pictograms that they're using. But at least in the German-speaking region, it's one set of pictograms that kids learn in school, for example, or when they first go to speech therapy. So they're familiar with that. And they don't have to. We're not inventing that language, but we're bringing it to the digital world.
And is the English pictograms different from German pictograms and all the?
Okay. Yeah, there are differences in terms of illustration, but also in like ethical context. For example, if you go to the Eastern countries, you really have to take care of how to represent the woman, things like that. Yeah, those are also things we have to consider when we want to go to new markets.
And then you are going and doing user testing and all of this. What are because I just can't imagine how then people are using their smartphone overall. Like, are they using smartphones considering that all the information is text-based? How do they operate that device now?
Yeah, I think most of our users already have a smartphone or at least an iPad because they are already using it for like talker apps. It's like you just touch on symbols and the tablet iPad speaks for you. So they are really good in using it. And that's what worries me the most because they have smartphones and iPads and they have like the things they need to communicate with others, but they just can't because all those other apps or competitors are just isolated solutions for our users and we want to kind of connect them with all the other apps that are available.
So what they would do, for example, is they take the Talker application, write a couple of pictograms, and then take a picture of that and send that via WhatsApp. And this is how they're communicating. And they need 2 devices for that, and it's super tedious and super annoying, but there's just nothing else out there.
And considering all the emojis that people are so used to using now, it's like weird, how did this not get integrated? Yeah. But then you're also operating in a very kind of like environment where, let's say WhatsApp will now all of a sudden introduce pictograms. And then kind of like all the AI-enabled translation or, kind of like between text and sound like others. What is the, innovation and technology playing in your field of work? Are you worried? How are you tackling it? Of course, you're harnessing it. So can you tell me a bit more?
Yeah. I think it would be great if they would do that. Yeah. It would be amazing because it would just open up their platform for so many more people. But I think technology can really enable people in the field that we're working in. So what we do right now, it's not deep tech. It's not revolutionary AI stuff that we do. We use technology that is out there, that is proven that it works. We're just bringing it to a new field.
And I think there's one saying of a famous researcher in that field, and he says, like, for people like us, technology makes things better, but for people with cognitive disabilities, it makes things possible. So,
No, absolutely. I've spoken to a couple of WSA winners that are enabling, which is just incredible. But are you like one of the key hurdles that I've heard consistently from digital solutions trying to enable, people with cognitive or hearing or visual disabilities? Is reaching a target audience? Is that it's super difficult to actually get through to people with those disabilities because they're the way they consume, the marketing to them, like it's completely different. What is your take on that?
I think it's not difficult, but what you need to do is you need to kind of cooperate with them. So what we are doing, we are not designing or developing the app on our own and just telling them what they need to use. They are like our co-designers, so we form the team with them, and I think that makes the difference because they can decide what we are going to build, and we just work together. And I think that's the secret for reaching people with disabilities.
And that's exactly what those other companies are doing. It's just that going and growing through that initial user base that is there for you to test with. It's like, how do you go, to the whole region? How do you go to the world? That's kind of where it's maybe something, just an insight that I got from talking to other companies building.
Yeah, what we are experiencing is that common marketing tools don't work very well, but what works very well is like word of mouth. So someone tells another one that this works really well for them and they can help building the app, and I think that's what you need to do in this field.
Yeah.
And I think it's a community that is already very tight because they're already sharing solutions, how or workarounds for certain issues, and there's huge Facebook groups or Instagram channels where people would gather, and also in institutions. So there are a lot of institutions out there that do support, that do help, and through those, I think those are the best channels for us to actually reach our end users.
So now, because we're doing a video and potentially people haven't seen your pitch, that hopefully watching this, tell us about what does Independo do exactly? How does it work?
Okay, so Independo, at Independo, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make the digital world accessible to people with learning difficulties. There's a lot of people out there that struggle with text-based information because they cannot read or write. And what we're doing is we're translating text-based information into pictograms, into audio. And the first application that we built is a calendar diary. And that calendar diary integrates with existing calendars like Google Calendar. So we're translating what is already there, and we're trying to make that available to a user group that doesn't have access to that right now.
Yeah. So it's a separate app where basically you just plug into Google Calendar, and then people who need that translation will see it in pictograms and the way they like to.
So you can use the app standalone, so it works like any other digital calendar out there, but you can also integrate that with existing calendar solutions.
Yeah. Let's talk numbers. impact measurement. How is it going, and where are you with your product, but also with testing and users?
So right now we have about 200 weekly active users in our application. We have 6 partner institutions that are currently actively using our app. And since yesterday, we now got approval from the German and the Austrian health insurance providers, so people can access our app through that as well.
What does it mean? How does it work, actually?
So actually, what does it mean that health insurance is paying for the app and people with disabilities don't have to pay for it?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a win-win. How did you convince health insurance to do so? Like, what is their benefit? It
was also our partner institutions again. So some of our partner institutions are like accredited.
Yeah, they're accredited.
Yeah, by health insurance, and they did that for us.
Okay.
So they have doctors involved. They wrote prescriptions that actually say, okay, the application that we built helps communicating, and now this can be shipped with their iPads, with their talker applications as well.
So you're also getting your app installed on the application, like on the iPads and tablets.
Yes.
iPads, tablets, obviously, but like smartphones.
Mainly iPads in our field.
Yeah. Is it that people with disabilities have a different set of apps pre-installed on the devices, or you don't know? Or
yeah, they do. So when the health insurance is paying for the apps, they have a different set of apps already installed on the iPad. So yeah.
And then basically, so would the insurance pay for everybody's apps, or do you have still certain differences?
Yeah. They only pay for apps that are pre-installed. If you then install more apps on your iPad, they don't pay for it. And it's also like the access to other apps is also kind of...
Yeah. But I mean, probably the insurance only pays for the patients.
Yeah.
like for the customers of insurance, right?
Yeah.
So that can be done. It's part of a package of insurance.
Yeah.
Nice. So it's kind of like a win-win.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of your future plans for expansion, because it feels that you're actually like really hitting the right way of growth, going through institutions that help you to open the doors.
Yeah.
What is your plans for expansion and reaching more people in need?
So we have 2 plans for expansion. So we want to build more apps based on our mechanism of translation. And second, our next region we are targeting already is like the Nordics, because inclusion really matters there and it's going fast. So that's the next region. Or we have already kicked off a pilot project there. And yeah.
Yeah. And why more apps and not the same app with more functions?
So we thought about that, and we decided to build dedicated apps because we don't want to overload the application that we have already. So what we want to avoid is to have 100,000 features in one application, and then it can do everything, but actually it does nothing. So we want to build dedicated apps for dedicated use cases.
What interesting insights are you learning from getting, 200 monthly active users using your calendar? What is interesting that you're learning and insights that you're getting?
I think for me the most interesting insight we ever received was like one mom just sent me an email telling me about their user experience, and she was like, it was the first day that my daughter told me that she wants to bake a cake on Sunday, and I thought, wow, this is just like it really gets hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And in terms of your business running, you 4 co-founders, that's, a lot to manage, which some organizations manage, some don't, and people split up. How is it going for you to manage business as 4 co-founders? And did you hire more team members, or is it 4 of you?
So for me personally, I think it wouldn't be possible without 4 co-founders, because we have 4 very different roles in the company. Everyone focuses on dedicated parts of our business. We have our CPO who's getting all this user feedback, designing the next applications together with our UX designer. So we're actually 6 people now, so 4 co-founders and 2 people full-time on board, so they can focus on that part. With our CTO, we just make sure that what we build actually works. And I think it does require quite a bit of communication amongst the 4 of us, but I think it's totally worth it, and it wouldn't work otherwise.
And I think the good thing is that we have known each other before we found the company, and that really makes a difference, because I know what annoys Konsti, he knows what things are annoying me, so that really helps and makes communication a lot easier.
Yeah. So coming from that same group, you probably did projects before together to know kind of how you work.
So some of us worked on projects before, some of us didn't.
And the kind of 4 you came very organically together, right? That's around this idea.
So we're doing an extended study program at the Technical University in Vienna. So we all have different engineering backgrounds, and that's a 2-semester extension program that basically teaches engineers how to run a company, how to start a startup, basics on financial, legal, marketing, stuff like that.
Financials. Let's talk about that. I heard you got the grant, but what is your plan and outlook for the company as it grows in terms of arranging financials?
So we've financed the company so far with public grants. So we got public grants from AWS, so Austria Wirtschaftsservice. We got grants from FFG, so those are research grants. We got grants from the city of Vienna. And I think we wouldn't be able to have a company at the stage that we are right now without those grants, because I don't think that we would have been an investment case early on, because we always had to defend, okay, we're a social startup. How does that thing make money? And I think we rather early on knew that this could work out as a company, and it has to work out as a self-sustaining company in the long run. But to get to that point, we needed the grants. Now we actually have two business angels on board that support us, and it now really depends on how well the health insurance use case works out. Because if that really grows, then we can become self-sustaining rather quickly. And
Yeah.
So we will see the next months and years bring.
Sounds that everything is just working. Like like it's just we've had the idea, we have this partners, it's all working. What challenges do you have? Do you have any challenges that like are really keeping you awake at night? Or smaller, not necessarily.
Not necessarily keeping awake at night, but I think growing with the company, because we over the past year and a half we grew quite a bit and things went very fast. And we started also out as a fun project that we just did to actually a serious business where people are employed, where people are paid, where we have to do.
Do you have more employees now?
Yeah, so we're 6 people. So there's 2 full-time employees and then we have 2 more who are part-time involved in the company. So yeah, it's a serious business now.
Yeah,
congratulations. And just personally growing with that, coming from, for me personally, from a software engineering background, so the software engineering role, but I didn't have a business background. Growing with that.
Yeah, for me it's also the personal growth. So it really needs a lot of personal growth, and sometimes you just have to take time for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's incredible to hear how everything is coming together, which I think can be super inspiring for other people to learn from, right? And Your Connect is something that has been with you from your little age to onboard more people, to believe and actually see the impact. What is that thing that, maybe a separate question for you both, but like really, when you wake up in the morning and you're like, the goal that you have and that mission, eternal mission that is driving you?
Yeah, for me it all comes down to digital inclusion, because I really cannot understand why it has to be like it is right now, and so that drives me everywhere, that I want to help make digital inclusion possible.
And then you mean the way it is right now? Exactly, that some people are completely excluded and not.
Yeah, because it doesn't have to be like that, right? There's really impressive technology out there, and AI is kind of ruling the world, and we didn't manage yet to build solutions that really include people with cognitive disabilities or disabilities at all, and so that really drives me.
And do you think it comes down to a fact that that's not necessarily a VC backable business that stimulates then, companies to jump in on solutions for that? Why do you think till date, given that the internet was around since 1992, 95, why do you think that is until today?
No, I don't think that it's because it couldn't be a VC-backed business. I think it can be. But I think it's just because there are barriers. People without disabilities don't communicate with people with disabilities at all. There are so many barriers, and we are just not used to talking and working together with them. And I think that's the problem, because you don't know what they really need if you don't talk to them.
I think it's systemic barriers that create barriers in the minds of people.
Yeah.
Because for me personally, I went to high school in Austria and then to university, but I was never in contact with people with disabilities. Just because there are basically 2 dedicated systems, basically 2 dedicated societies that exist in this country, and probably not just in this country, probably in other countries as well. And the reason is because someone chose to have a dedicated special education school system. And kids are separated when they're 4 years, 6 years old, and they go to a dedicated school system. And when you're simply not aware of the problem, there's also nothing you can do about it. And the same goes for university curricula in Austria, for example. So I did a master's degree in software engineering, and we had one lecture where someone told us, hey, maybe you have to make your websites accessible for screen readers. Which is insane in my opinion, because we're the people that are building the digital infrastructure for the next 10, 15, 20 years. And just how architecture had to learn that they have to build buildings that are accessible for a wheelchair, for example. So does software engineering as an entire field. And when you don't teach the next generation of engineers how to do that, then the system will also not change. So I think it's a very systemic problem that can, like, there's very, very many screws that we could tighten or change or.
Are you doing advocacy given that you're already partnering with institutions that are at the forefront of representing and connecting people with disabilities?
We already do, like at universities, we're also giving workshops, like in Youth Entrepreneurships Week, also to make them aware of the problem. That's what I'm doing. I think you already also did that already, but I really want to do more. But I also have to, for me personally, find the courage to speak out loud, for example, on LinkedIn or like that.
Yeah.
It's also personal.
Yeah, there are a lot of reasons why people don't post on LinkedIn.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Final question, maybe. If you had a magic wand and could change one thing in your area of work, what would you change?
So for me, because it's very close, I would change the curricula in universities quite a bit, because it would just make essential people to digital infrastructure more aware of problems that they just don't know of right now. I think that would be a very, very specific thing that would not take a lot of work, because there are insanely good researchers at the universities that really know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And just having that part of every curriculum, every software engineer has to learn math at university. And the same way they should learn how to design systems that are
navigation for
inclusive. Yeah.
For me, I really would change like kindergartens, because for me it all comes down to kindergarten. If you have ever been in contact with, always been in contact with people with disabilities from a very young age, it just feels so normal, and it should be normal, but it isn't, because there's so many stereotypes. So I would definitely start with kindergarten.
Okay. Yeah. Amazing.
So we can build on this.
Yeah, you can do it. And then potentially we will not even need to include it in the curriculum.
Yeah, no, because people are just aware of that.
Exactly. Yeah. No, but I totally agree that like there is such a people with disabilities just don't even think about it. Yeah. And that's the biggest problem. Yeah, and technology is helping us change that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So thank you very much for first of all talking to me, and second of all, of course, for all your efforts and all your emotions and energy going into solving such an important problem.
Thank you.
Amazing. All right.